Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the session on retirement planning being hosted by Sumar Consultants Limited. We welcome our 20 participants so far and trust that others will join us. Sumar Consultants Limited, my name is Susan Romano Davis and my colleague is Yulan Sanderson. My company has been in existence since 1996. And we are a management and financial consultancy business. We specialize in personal financial planning, retirement planning, investment planning, insurance and estate planning, employee benefits planning. So we cover a wide scope of services that we offer to our clients. Today, we are focusing on retirement planning. And I'm going to share my screen. The presentation and will take about 45 minutes and we will leave the floor open for the next 15 minutes for questions and answers. While I'm presenting, I may stop to ask you to do a little exercise and I will ask the person who wants to share. I'm going to ask 2 or 3 people to share. Anybody who wants to share can raise their hand. And I will ask the administrator to open the mic for that person to share. And we will continue, but I will be, please write your questions. And I want you, if you have any questions at all, write it in the Q&A section and we will address it in the last 15 minutes when we do the break, because it's a heavy topic to present in 45 minutes. So if I were on the floor with you, I would have said, sure, ask your questions. But because we have a time frame, I would prefer if questions are done at the end. So I'll share my screen and we go into the presentation on retirement planning. Let me just from beginning. So the objectives of the workshop this afternoon are first, understand the importance of setting goals and planning. Second objective, understand that retirement is both psychological as well as financial. To be able to separate the myths from the realities. Right now, we have a lot of myths about COVID and being vaccinated and all sorts of things. In similar way, people have myths about finances and retirement. Understand why starting early to save for retirement is critical. And be more informed why having a personal retirement plan is important. And when people think about a retirement plan, sometimes they only think about one aspect of the plan, but there are so many aspects. So what are the sources of that retirement income? Where are you going to get this income from? What is the budget that you're going to live by? What is your investment portfolio? How are you going to design this portfolio? And what are the risks that you have to consider as you go into retirement? So all of these things we will talk about briefly, but it is whetting your appetite. So the 3 main areas of focus when we're looking at retirement, as I said, psychological. I am not a psychologist and I'm not going to cross that border, but we also have to recognize that we have to prepare ourselves for that stage in our lives. Financial, which is what we are going to focus on, and physical. And I want to say that all of these things start in our youth and take us through to when we become senior citizens. So every journey must begin with a plan. And a wise old man once said, if youth only knew, if age only could. When we're young, we feel that nothing is above us or we can't, there's nothing that we cannot accomplish. And then we reach old age and we look back and we say, if only I could go back. And so we don't, if youth only knew, if age only could, right? What is important to you and why? On the road to retirement, there are many competing goals in our lives. We may not be able to achieve all of our dreams and objectives. So if you think about it, when you start to work, you want to buy a car, you want to travel, Then you want to get married, you want to have children, you have to educate these children, you want to have your own home. So many competing goals on the road to retirement. We have to determine what is important to us and why. I want to play mass, I want to be in the front line because you want to go to all the parties and fetes. What is important to you? Setting up a financial plan makes it possible to develop a plan that enables you to convert your dreams, what really is important to you, into goals and objectives. And then, and only then, would you grow closer to achieving those goals and objectives. So this is where I want to stop a little bit. I want to ask you right now, this is a canvas, this is a blank canvas, your canvas. And if I were to ask you to paint a picture of what your ideal life in retirement will look like, what would be on that canvas? Even if you're like me and can't draw to save your life, still write down something. What is, when you think about this season in your life to come, if you're close to it, if you're far away from it, but you still want to think about it, what would that picture look like? If you were telling an artist today to paint your ideal life in retirement, what would it look like? I'm going to give you 2 minutes just to ponder on it and ask somebody to share with me, or 1 or 2 people, what they put on that canvas.
Is it that you want to travel in your retirement? Are you planning to maybe have what we call a light going retirement? Doing some gardening at this time? Do you want to work, do social work? Do you want to be this great grandparent, taking care of grandchildren? What it is you want to do, just write it down or draw it.
You are your time on that, right? Even if it's one thing I want you to write on the campus, and if we have one brave person, and maybe we will give that person a prize after, that brave person to share with us what they put on that canvas. And I don't know if our hosts would see who has their hand up, if somebody would have put up their hand, if anybody put up their hand to share with us what they wrote on that canvas.
Well, someone put up their hand already. And then someone said, my house is paid off, savings in the bank. I am happy with my children and grandchildren. Visiting, I am traveling in a COVID-free world with my spouse.
Excellent. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Now that is what you call a retirement picture. And notice she didn't say grandchildren living with her. She said visiting and traveling in a COVID-free environment. And that person really deserves a prize. So keep that picture. Remember that picture, because as we go along, you can see what could impact that picture. I would love to know how old that person is, but maybe we could find out that a little later on. So I'm going to move on, but I want you to understand that in everything we do, we need to have our vision board. So this is your retirement vision board. This is, for some people, it could be a house vision board, but I have a retirement vision board. So if it's a healthy lifestyle, you want to live traveling with your husband, joy, giving back, multiple streams of income because you have money in the bank, your house paid off for, put up your retirement vision board and keep it in front of you always, because we never know what could happen. Ian Narine writes in the Trinidad in the Business Guardian on a Thursday, And one of his articles spoke to demographics is destiny. And I just grabbed it because I thought that was such an interesting line. Demographics is destiny. To understand the issues, you have to understand the demographics. And you will understand why I am going here. Because we have so many things ahead of us that we are not sure that we will be able to navigate. Change just ahead, the changing dynamics of the world that we live in. We are seeing high divorce rates. And even with people, the person who wrote on the canvas said, with my spouse. In retirement, a lot of people get divorced because of the psychology of the changing relationship. All the time you're working, you on your own, he on his own, you're leaving early and coming home late. You're retired now and both are in each other's face and both are you're not getting along. Divorce. And not only before retirement, but not only in retirement, but before retirement. You build something and just before you retire, divorce. Children moving back home to live with parents. Empty nest becoming full again. That person said, visit him. We are now seeing because children cannot afford to purchase homes. This is happening. Frequent career and job changes. All of these things impact that journey, that because the destination is retirement, but the journey along the way. High number of contract workers. People are not getting benefits anymore. No employee, they're not working long enough in a job. And a lot of people who are hiring people on contract. So people, if we look at the petrol situation, I know somebody who worked from 24, age 24 with Petrotrin, worked 20 years with the company, but was only in the last 6 years that she was made permanent. So her whole benefit package, and she wasn't yet 50 when Petrotrin closed down. So her benefit package was small. She had just taken out a mortgage. Families starting later. What does that mean? Long ago, people would say, just as this lady just said, or this person just said, 60, 65, my house paid off for, I live in debt free. What we are seeing is people are getting married later, starting families later. So they're going into their 60s or getting homes later, going into their 60s and now still having mortgage, still having children to educate. More persons starting their own businesses. Starting your own businesses means you are your own employer. If you are your own employer, then you have to put your own employee benefits because you are an employee of your company. You now have to put your own benefits package into play. People working longer, people living longer in retirement. And we are also seeing increasing incidence of critical illness. All of this is up ahead on your journey to retirement. Demographics is destiny. We have to understand what could come at us and plan for it. The longevity revolution, the whole idea of the rest of your life has been replaced by the uncertainty of how long that will be and what it will take to live it out comfortably, right? So some retirement statistics in Trinidad and Tobago. In 2020, the inflation rate was 1%, and it's still averaging about that. It's going creeping up a little bit, but it's 1%. About 8 or 10 years ago, the inflation rate was almost 7%, right? Average life expectancy in Trinidad and Tobago is 71. There are approximately 97,000 persons over the age of 70 currently living in Trinidad and Tobago, and 27,000 over the age of 80. I was trying to get from Dr. Rouse, Jennifer Rouse, the how many 100-year-old centurions that we have. The last session I attended with her, I remember her saying something like more than 300 centurions, and most of those were women. So, retirement planning questions to ponder. When to retire? What age do you have in mind for your retirement? That's where the plan starts. What age do you want to retire? How do you envision your retirement? The question that I asked, the canvas, what is on that canvas? Where will you be living in your retirement? Yulan right now is talking to us from Florida, from Atlanta, because that's where her daughter and grandchildren are. So she is spending time there with them. When will you need to, what will you need to live the life you envision? What will it cost? How much would you need to save to be able to afford the life that you envision? And all along, you have to keep asking, are my expectations realistic? I interviewed somebody yesterday or day before, and I asked the question, tell me about retirement. When would you like to retire? Age 50. Everybody wants to retire at 50 or 55, but they don't understand how much they have to save to retire at age 50 or 55. So the goals and objectives are key, are critical, and goals have to be smart. They have to be specific. They must be measurable. They have to be attainable as far as you are concerned, realistic, and must have a timeline. So the young lady who said, or the young person, or the person who said, debt-free, savings in the bank, travel, all of those things sound good, but they don't have a time and they don't have a dollar value and they don't have a number next to it. This is a goal. I would like to retire at age 65. I would like to retire with an income of $15,000 monthly, not including NIS, and I will tell you why I say that, and an additional $40,000 for annual travel. This person wants to travel. That is a specific goal that we know we could work backwards, knowing what the person age is. If the person is 35, we know we have 30 years of planning to be able to achieve that goal, and what it would take to achieve that goal. How much savings, what is the interest rate that we're going to use, what is the inflation rate, because $15,000 today is not $15,000 in 30 years' time. We want $15,000 worth of purchasing power in 30 years' time. So what would be the equivalent of $15,000 today in 30 years' time to be able to give this person what they want? People, the reality does not always match the dream. In 2008, the central bank, the then central bank governor, Ewart Williams, the central bank did a survey of 1,000 households with retirees. And the results, broken and old. Almost half of this country's retirees do not have enough money to give them the standard of living they hope for in their retirement. 1 in 3 persons over the age of 60 continues to work because they need the additional income. 54% of those surveys had neither an employer's pension, an occupational pension, nor did they have a personal pension. And a substantial percentage of the respondents, 69%, were relying simply on NIS and some on old age pension. And Yulan made the point earlier when I was going through the presentation, old age pension is not a pension, it's a grant. It's a means test that you have to do to be able to qualify. And in these times, Guava season, where the government fighting to find money, we're not even sure of how long that grant would continue to, they will have to continue to, and that's why it may be paid late and you have to wait. So you don't want to be depending on that. Another alarming result, he said, was that 56% of the people surveyed did not have any protection against personal or property loss. You build a house, you bought a house, you built a house, you develop this house, you have this house, you reach into retirement, that's your primary asset. And the house burned down. Something happened to the house. You have no means of rebuilding that house at that stage in your lives. Why would you not want to protect it? Only about 18% had life insurance. And I don't have a problem with that, because as you get older, the need for life insurance decreases and other kinds of insurance become more important. But only 8% had critical illness insurance. And the last shocking result, only 18% of those 1,000 people surveyed had car insurance. He didn't say they didn't have cars, but they had no car insurance. So they're on the road driving without insurance. That was Trinidad and Tobago. I want you to understand the statistics, because if we don't, we will make the same mistakes. This is the US. Ernst & Young did a next generation retirement planning survey in the US. 66% of those surveyed failed to consider market fluctuations or debt repayment needs. Remember, I said we are starting families earlier. A lot of us are going into educating ourselves and becoming more educated before we decide to start families. Or I spoke to a young lady and her husband yesterday, and I said, what about starting a family? She said, no, I want to travel. I'm not ready to start no family now, right? And so we carry that into later stages of our lives. 53% did not consider the impact of taxes, and Uncle Sam taxes everything. 47% did not calculate the effects of inflation. Inflation is the enemy of wealth. And when you go into retirement, if it is that you have an employer's pension, that pension is fixed for life, right? So it doesn't change, but the cost of living continues to go up. 81% did not consider the possibility of their parents getting ill. A lot of us live with aging parents. Do those parents have the plans that they need, or are their responsibility ours? If they get sick, it's our responsibility. Does it fall on us? And if it falls on us, then it means that it is impacting our savings and our investments. 54% did not plan for their own personal illness, nor the illness of a spouse, because all we're thinking about, like the person who had the canvas, we're going to travel and we're going to have fun in this period of our lives. People, I know somebody who retired from the public service recently. She retired at 60 and she's gone at 62. And she had plans for travel. As a matter of fact, she was actually in the salon doing up her nails and things to fly out. And she just started to talk, rattle off all sorts of nonsense, and the nail technician got scared, only to find out she had some tumor or something, and it was cancerous. 33% expected to spend more than 20 years in retirement. These are not my figures. These are surveys done in Trinidad, and these are surveys done in the US. The conclusion: most people, retirement planning is unrealistic. Quantifying the need for saving for retirement. Many of them said if they could go back, if age only knew, if youth only knew, if age only could, they would become better educated about retirement products and services. They would develop a better budget to determine exactly how much they would need to live comfortably. They would start planning earlier, and they would take advice from a professional, a financial advisor, right? So the lesson that the central bank governor said, citizens need to learn how to budget and how to plan ahead. They need to learn the importance of insurance. Retirement planning is a team approach. You need a qualified financial advisor, an attorney at law, a stockbroker, investment advisor, a real estate agent, a man who advises himself in professional matters as a fool for a client. So it's not a one man, it's a team approach, and you need to have the right people on your team. So having said all of that, having looked at where it is you want to go, when you want to retire, the type of life that you want to have, what it will cost you, where we are now. Where are you now? Remember, I said every journey begins with a plan. When you start, if you get into your car and you tell me I have to go to a PSCU credit union on that street where in Porterfield, close to the Wrights Road in Porterfield, I would put it in on my GPS so that when I jump in my car, I know that the GPS will take me to exactly where I want to go, that location. This is what your plan does. Your financial plan takes you to that destination. So where are you now? The starting point for any financial plan is your net worth statement. Sorry, let me just take off this. Your net worth statement. And the second area that we look at is your income and expense statement. These paint a picture. I love pictures. That's why I like the canvas. I am a picture person. If I were doing this session live with you, I would have you build a puzzle, because you buy a puzzle because of the picture on the box. And to build the puzzle, you have to follow the picture on the box. The pieces match the picture. Many of us looking at our neighbor puzzle and want to build our neighbor life and not our own life, right? So this is your net worth statement. We only have 45 minutes. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but this paints a picture. It paints a picture of where you are now. What do you have in place towards those goals and objectives, and where you have it. A lot of people have money sitting down in bank savings accounts and your credit union giving you more. I sure PSCU paying more than the bank savings account, but you prefer to give it to the bank. And PSCU not only giving you, the bank are giving you nothing, but PSCU giving you dividends and PSCU giving you loans that you could use to do investments towards your retirement. So we look at what you have, where you have it. Is it earning for you? Is it working for you? And sometimes people have debt, a lot of debt. And when I look at their assets, I'm not seeing anything in line with the debt to say, okay, this debt represents the mortgage, or this debt represents bonds. You know, it took your education for your children. So it paints a picture for me. And that's the starting point for planning. The next one, understanding your position. The other half of understanding your finances is to complete an accurate income and expense analysis. The biggest mistake we make is not knowing where our money, not knowing what you are doing with your money, where you are financially, and what is up ahead. I like to use WASA. WASA says, stop the leaks, find the leaks, and close off the leaks. This is what your income and expense statement allows you to do. It allows you to find the leaks where money is leaking, and then you want to close that tap so that you can now redirect that money into something more productive. So the income and expense statement allows you to start the process of budgeting. And a budget, you know, I tell people, I know a lot of people don't like the word budget because they don't like the word diet, because it means that you're denying yourself and you can't do what you want to do. So I don't use the word budget. I use the word statement of choice. This is you telling your money where you want your money to go instead of wondering where it went. So your statement of choice, every month, you decide where you want your money to go. So the budget is a plan of how and where you want your money to be spent. So planning and control. It also allows you to evaluate, because after you make the budget, you say, okay, $1,000 for X, $2,000 for Y, $500 for Z. All of these things, you make your budget, and then you have the actual spending. You actually spend. So now you can evaluate. Did I spend in line with my budget, or was it more? And therefore, maybe I under budgeted, or maybe I over budgeted. So you can start to evaluate. A budget also forces us to think ahead. Okay, so you want to travel. You want to budget $40,000 for annual travel. It allows us to think ahead. That would determine the destinations we go, or maybe like I did a South Africa trip that almost cost me $70,000. So I know I did not travel the 1 year. I had to travel to save up 2 years to be able to make that trip. So I may not have been able to do annual travel. I may have to do biannual travel because of the destination that I choose. It is also a tool of communication and coordination. You could talk to your family, communicate with the family. Why we turning off the lights? Everybody we want to turn off the lights so we could save on electricity, save that cost, so we could put it towards something. So the rule, spend less than you receive. Self-check. And I want, if we all were in the class, everybody would be answering. How often do you pay your phone bill? I would say, if you're on a plan, more than likely monthly. How often do you pay rent or mortgage? Again, monthly. How often do you pay cable or internet? Monthly. How often do you pay yourself? A lot of us don't pay ourselves. 5 out of every 100 persons pay themselves and have found a way around this problem. What is the rule? Before I say that though, the other 95% will probably tell you by the time they pay everyone else, they have nothing left over to pay themselves. So the rule is pay yourself first. You pay 10% to the church, you pay 25% to the government every month for those who tithe, 25% for everyone who is employed. What percentage are you going to use to pay you? How much are you going to pay yourself? 10% of your salary, 15% of your salary, 20%? Pay yourself first and then pay everybody else after. I would like to ask a question because in 2021, everyone who is working received a $250 increase in salary. And you always say, no, Mr. Dukes, you only get, if it's public servants I'm talking to, because PSCU Credit Union, I believe is public servants. Mr. Dukes, you only get a raise in salary for a long time. I am saying to you, everybody received a $250 increase in their salary when the Trinidad and Tobago government moved your personal allowance from $72,000 to $84,000 in 2021. We all received a $250 increase. What did we do with that? Where did that go? That was an opportunity to save, right? So we look at somebody, this person, I think this person had a negative, a deficit. They were spending more than they were earning. When I go through an income and expense with somebody, I go through it very detailed. Right? Your expenses, I categorize your tithing, if you're tight, your savings, the shelter, utilities, food. And when I do food, I also do eating out. People go to work and buy lunch and breakfast when they go to work and don't realize how much money they're spending in food. Restaurants, all of those things come under food, personal, your life insurances, your hair care, your nails, your whatever, your dependents if you have children, transportation with your vehicle, repairs to your vehicle. And notice, the ones in yellow are annual, they are not monthly, but our budget plans ahead for all our quarterly expenses, our semi-annual expenses, our annual expenses. All of those things must be considered in the budget. The family vacation, the car insurance, all of those things, children's school books. Now is the time that parents now looking for money to buy books because they didn't budget for it, right? Your debts, and then you have a very clear picture of where you are. So you have a plan for expenses, short, medium, or long-term expenses. And then when you look at that plan and review that plan and evaluate that plan, then you determine what you could cut and what you cut, how you could save for future goals. One of the things I always tell people is that when you're planning for retirement, one of the goals you have to plan for is home repairs. We buy our homes in our 30s, 20s, and 30s. Those homes retire with us when we reach 60. So we have to prepare before we go into retirement, like 5 years before you're going to home renovations, doing over your roof, doing over your electricals, doing over maybe your kitchen, your bathroom fittings, replacing appliances, because you don't want your retirement money to have to be used to do these things. I remember Yulan doing over her roof, and she said the cost of doing over her roof cost her more than what she paid for her house. Right?
Exactly.
So true, Yulan?
So very true. I was surprised.
Yeah, so we
Cost me
have
more than what I
to,
paid for the house.
we have to, because of inflation. So all of these things we have to plan ahead of the game for when we are considering planning for retirement. Another thing we don't plan for, as I said in the survey, illness. Health issues related to lifestyle diseases escalate in retirement. The young person today going to become the senior citizen tomorrow, and the lifestyle of that young person today impacts the lifestyle of the senior citizen tomorrow. Major medical costs could happen in retirement. I want to share my story because I believe in sharing. I turned 61 in 2015. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in November of 2015. I am here sitting and talking to you today. If I were working with a public service, I would have been retired. I would have left active service and I would have been retired and I would have been on a pension. And I would have had no health insurance because I no longer work with the public service. And when you leave the public service, you have no health insurance. So if I was working with the public service, I would have been in trouble. Thankfully, I had the right health insurance and I had critical illness insurance, which allowed me to have peace of mind, which allowed me to choose the institutions that I wanted to take care of me, which allowed me to choose doctor I wanted to do. I did my surgery in the US and I came back here and I did my treatments here privately. All of that allowed me not to have to touch my retirement money. Prescription drug costs, dental costs, optical care costs, all of these things happen when we retire. So this little chart just shows us what this, and this is again not me. This is statistics that have been shown for years. If you start at 20 to save for retirement, you should be saving about 11% of your salary. If you start at 30, it goes to 17. Most of us start to think about retirement in our 40s and 50s. You see the burden of how much you have to save when you start late. So just letting you know that the day you start to work, and some of you may have young children, this is not only for you, but for your nieces, your nephews, and whoever going into workforce. From this time they start to work, that is when they should start saving for retirement.
Suzanne, let me just share one of the persons who wrote on the chat, actually the person who wants to do the travel and everything. She said, I was fortunate to start saving for retirement in my 20s, but I am concerned with inflation. Money that seemed livable in my 20s is very little as I move up towards my 60s. How
and
can one
that is so true. And that is why I tell people, anytime I speak to people about retirement planning and saving, I always say, think about saving a percentage of your income. Because I've had people who open retirement plans and start saving $100. And every year I write them and say, listen, I think you need to review, rather than thinking of an absolute figure, think of 5%, 10% of your salary. So wherever your salary goes, that 5 or 10%, continue to save at that level, that 5% or 10%. So therefore you are doing your own indexing or your own inflation protection. If you could put more, put more. And you also have to look at, are you saving in the right instruments? So again, we come back. What is your desired retirement age? What is your desired income? Remember when I started early in the objectives, the plan, what are the sources? Where is that money going to come from? You have national insurance, the employer pension, a personal annuity, other income. Some people go into property, real estate, where you get rental income. The credit union, you get your dividends, stocks and bonds, you get interest. All of those are multiple streams of income. But remember, each of them would have their own pros and cons, because there are people who tell me I don't need to have a personal annuity or a personal pension, or I don't need to have because I have real estate. Today, COVID showed us that real estate, I have a property in St. Augustine that I rent. For the last 18 months, that property has been untenanted because it was rented to UE students. So if that was my only source of retirement income, I will be in a mess. I would have had no income coming in. So you look at all the various sources of income. Then you have your total estimated income. And then if the total estimated income is not up to par with what is income is needed, which is what this young man is saying or this person is saying, there's still a shortfall, then we have to see how we could fund that shortfall. And remember too, people think about stopping saving when they retire. If you're retiring, my father retired at 60 and lived to 93. So he lived 33 years in retirement. You could still be saving and investing even in your retirement because of longevity, right? So we're looking at sources of retirement income. I have an employer pension, and that is a myth because too many people feel that that is all they need. I have an employer pension. I do not need much money when I retire. I'm going to show you on the screen my father's retirement letter. This is what drove retirement planning is one of my pet areas, and this is the reason why. My father worked with the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission. He worked with them for 23 years. He worked with another company before, and then he went to TLH. When he retired in 1982, after 23 years with the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission, 1982, his pension lump sum was $21,000. I told you how long he lived for? He lived for 33 years in retirement. His pension monthly, $711.87. I have it here, so nobody could say a lie. They had an excellent group health plan, which he continued to be on. The good thing about TNTEC's plan is one of the only plans I know about in Trinidad and Tobago. TNTEC's plan is indexed, meaning it keeps abreast of inflation. So as inflation increased over the years, my dad's pension increased. So by the time he died, the pension was closer to $3,700 as opposed to $711. All public servant pension is fixed. It is not indexed. And therefore, whatever you start with is what you're going to continue. So if he was continuing on that $711, he would not have been able to even buy medication or Pampers or whatever coming down to the end, right? So, and this was outside of his NIS. So his total pension was close to $7,000. So people, and having an employer pension and feeling good about having an employer pension sometimes could be a myth, because as the person said, as you get older, even though it is a defined benefit plan with the public services linked to your salary, it's still going to be impacted, because think about it, your pension is 2/3 of your basic. It has nothing to do with allowances or anything. It's 2/3 of your basic. And that 2/3 of basic is going to take you for as long as you live. Most people, employer pension or NIS, some people only have a one-legged stool, NIS or old age pension. You do not want to be there, right? You don't want to be one of these people, mad rush for pension checks and pension grants, right? TNT's looming pension crisis. It's not local, it's global. All of us decide we only want to have 1 and 2 children, so fewer people going into the workforce. That's why Canada is now opening up their market for people to come in, because Canada is looking for people to build their social security system, right? NIB recommends freezing NIS pension at $3,000. So we know even have hope for that and all to go up in the future. And look at the recommendations. These were recent recommendations made by NIB, an immediate increase in the contribution rate, bringing more equity in the NIS by reducing the pension for those taking their retirement before 65. So it may be less than 3,000 if you decide to go before 65. Extending coverage to self-employed. Right now, self-employed people are not able to contribute to NIS. So these are some of the recommendations, because even NIS, for those who are strictly depending on NIS, even NIS has its challenges. What we retire on: mandatory savings. The national insurance scheme is mandatory. If you work with a company like TNTech or the public servants don't even pay for a pension. They just depend on the government to give them that pension. But there are employers like the BPs, the Shells, the NGCs. You have to contribute and your employer contributes. It's mandatory. You also have employer savings that are mandatory. And then you have elective annuity products offered by insurance companies, mutual funds like the IRUA, individual retirement account with unit trust. You have direct investments in the stock market and bonds and real estate. And then savings like the credit union, the banks, and on a certain insurance type policies. All of these are elective, right? To make your income stool balanced. If your employer is doing something for you, you say thank you. You contribute to your NIS, but we see the challenges with NIS. You want to have your personal plan as a solid third leg on that stool. Risk to your retirement. There are 6 key risks: market risk, longevity risk, if we live, how long we live, liquidity risk, how easily we can access the money that we have, inflation, the greatest risk, one of the greatest risks, health, another risk, and legacy, if we want to leave something for our children. No single product can mitigate all these 6 risks. And that's why you want to have a diversified retirement portfolio. And you determine how much you want in whichever one you choose. But you must have this diversified portfolio will allow you to plan for all the different eventualities. Right? Another myth: you need plenty money to invest. You have to be earning plenty to become wealthy. Investing is too risky. And all of these are reasons why we don't gain wealth, because we're afraid to go into the stock market. We don't understand it, so we fear it. We prefer to keep the money in the bank, and the bank tells us that if we keep it in the bank, and the bank goes through 125,000, so we put 125,000 in every bank, and we feel good. But inflation is eroding that money. Compound interest is the greatest mathematical discovery of all time. Albert Einstein said that. If you get a rate of 10%, when you ask me, Suzanne, why you got a rate of 10%? I could show you, but not here. $500 invested at 10% over 35 years takes you close to $2 million. $100 at 10%, close to $400,000. Time and money are the best time, and compound interest are the best of friends. That same $500 though, with a 5% return that previously gave you 2 million will give you $500,000 or just over $500,000. And so that is why you want to make sure that where you're putting your money, the credit union is a good place to put it, because if you have 600,000 in credit, I don't know what rate PSCU paid last year on their dividends, but most credit unions pay between 4 and 5%, and I think that's very good in this market for fixed income instruments. But you also have the opposite. So if you have 600,000 in your credit union at 5%, that's close to your $40,000 annual dividend for your travel, for your joy, right? So this is what I show when I'm showing how you look at your core expenses. Your monthly pension should pay your core expenses, your utilities, your food, your insurance, your if you have debt, personal upkeep, your vitamins, your medication. And then your dividends and your interest from your capital should pay your joy. That's why your travel, your hobbies, your entertainment, your leisure should come from your dividends and your interest, that the capital that you have invested would pay you. And then if you want to use some of that capital to buy the boat or the yacht to go fishing or whatever, continue to educate yourself, buy a property to bring in more income, all of that is important. And then for those who want to leave an inheritance for their children or leave something for their children at the top of the thing, that's where you do it. If not, at least you make sure that you are taken care of in retirement. You're not a burden to anybody, and whatever you leave at the end, they get. Let's look, this is the final part of the presentation, risk to your retirement plan. Myth, insurance is a rip-off. That's how people feel. A lot of people feel insurance is a rip-off. But when we see things, cancer nightmare, when I was undergoing my treatment, that article came out in the Daily Express, cancer nightmare, fear of death as patients suffer drug shortage. I remember going into Southern Medical in South to do my chemo treatment and seeing people coming from the public sector, coming into the private sector to get treatment because they couldn't access the treatment in the public sector. And I saw the stress and I saw the pain because a lot of them were using up their savings and their children's savings and their family savings to meet the cost of their treatment. So as we say, the technology that may save your life could destroy your financial well-being in the process, because recovery is often lengthy and expensive, involving losses to your personal wages and costs for care and treatment. Right? This family here says 500,000 in treatment didn't even save my son. Right? And now COVID is also impacting us. And long COVID, if you got COVID and had it for a long time, they're calling it long COVID, that could also impact you later on. So people, insurance is not a ripoff. Insurance is protection. It protects you, your family. You have plans to reach retirement. But just in case you don't make it, life insurance. If you make it to retirement, you have to protect your health. And then just in case of disability or living too long, longevity. Those are the 4 primary risks that insurance protects, right? And so we know, as we said, cancer is on the rise. That slide said cancer is the leading cause of death in females under age 65. And out of every 10 males, 3 were likely to have a critical illness before age 65. So when we look at this slide, it says in our earlier years, in our working years, 25 to 65, we want to protect our income. In our latter years, we want to protect our assets. What we worked hard to build, we don't want to have to pay out because of illness. Okay? So the major benefits of insurance in retirement, it encourages peace of mind and it fosters loss prevention. And then the last area, I think you all would have done some of this as some of the courses already, but all of this forms part of a retirement plan. And most people, when you talk about estate planning, they think you're talking about debt. Estate planning starts from the minute you acquire an asset. It's about the accumulation of those assets over the years. It's how we conserve those assets when we retire. And then how we distribute those assets when we're ready to depart. When we're in the departure lounge and we're ready to go, that we have put things in place to distribute those assets. So having a will, as soon as you get an asset, you should have a will. I am sure many of the parents who, you all notice how many husband and wives passed away with COVID. People from the same household dying with COVID. How many of them would have had a will? How many of them would have had a power of attorney, a medical directive? How many of them would have put things in place? Because maybe they didn't, because they didn't think that would have come so quickly. So all of these are aspects of estate planning, of retirement planning. Live for today, plan for tomorrow, right? Life is about choice, and the choices we make today would impact tomorrow. If youth only knew, if age only could, your future is generated by the choices you make in every moment of your life. So choose well. So I don't know if we have questions, and now is the time we will